All right. So today I'm going to be talking about just one passage of Carl Jung's written in his book, The Undiscovered Self, in the section Man and His Future, and the subsection titled Religion as a Counterbalance to Mass-Mindedness. So what I'll do is I'll read this quote really quickly, and you can read along with me, and then we'll talk. Just as man, as a social being, cannot in the long run exist without a tie to the community, so the individual will never find the real justification for his existence and his own spiritual and moral autonomy anywhere except in an extra mundane principle capable of relativizing the overpowering influence of external factors. The individual who is not anchored in God can offer no resistance on his own resources to the physical and moral blandishments of the world. For this, he needs the evidence of inner transcendent experience, which alone can protect him from otherwise inevitable submersion in the mass. Merely intellectual or even moral insight into the stultification and moral irresponsibility of the mass man is a negative recognition only and amounts to not much more than a wavering on the road to the atomization of the individual. It lacks the driving force of religious conviction, since it is merely rational. The dictator state has one great advantage over bourgeois reason. Along with the individual, it swallows up his religious forces. The state takes the place of God. That is why, seen from this angle, the socialist dictatorships are religions, and state slavery is a form of worship. But the religious function cannot be dislocated and falsified in this way without giving rise to secret doubts, which are immediately repressed so as to avoid conflict with the prevailing trend towards mass-mindedness. We'll stop there. But this essentially, this passage is fascinating, right? It essentially speaks of the importance of a religious function in man and how that inner life, that inner flourishing that is the result of religious experience or numinous transcendent experience is what gives man his moral fortitude in the face of injustice, really, right? So this is a fascinating quote. I would invite you guys to read the whole book, The Undiscovered Self by Jung, where he goes into depth about the nature of mass-mindedness and how the individual can resist this unconscious trend, this trend towards unconscious living. So, I really relate to this. And I also want to point out that Jung does not define religion as some external act. Like, it's not like going to church and doing a ritual over and over, even though that can be a secondary aspect to it. But he speaks more specifically of an inner religion, right? An inner fortitude that you have to resist the polarization of politics and the evils of state slavery. Jung was writing during a time of, I believe this was written in 1957. Let me just verify that real quick. Flipping pages. 1957, that's right. So that just tells you that during this time, Jung was writing, post World War II. He just lived through two terrible wars. And he'd also, we're getting right into the heels of the Cold War at that point between America and the USSR. So Jung was really thinking about like nuclear weapons and the unconscious and how man's instincts, and that's not quite the right term, but man's instincts rule him and his unconscious to behave in that fashion. So I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much. Have a good one.